The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had an entirely new obsession because Andy Cohen couldn't hold back his emotions on air.
Yeah, it was this incredibly vulnerable moment that completely stopped the internet in its tracks.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And for today's deep dive, we are unpacking the truly heartbreaking story that caused that viral television moment. We're looking at the tragic death of 28-year-old TV producer Kyra Samson.
Right, and we're going to explore the brutal reality of her sudden illness, the incredible legacy her family is actively forging right now, and what her story reveals about the very fragile, very real humans operating just behind the cameras.
Because we usually just focus on the stars.
Right.
We completely ignore the machinery holding it all together.
Exactly. And to even begin to understand why Andy Cohen was so visibly overcome with emotion, like struggling to catch his breath on live TV, you have to picture the set of Watch What Happens Live.
Oh, it is a highly specific vibe.
It totally is. If you've ever watched it late at night, you know it's engineered to be this ultimate chaotic cocktail party. You have this tiny, intentionally cramped clubhouse set where everyone's practically sitting on top of each other.
You got the Shosky loaded up.
You have a wildly unpredictable live audience, and then you have reality TV stars dripping in sequins, clutching their drinks, just armed with unresolved drama. And right in the absolute center of all that glorious manufactured chaos is Andy Cohen.
He's the ultimate ringmaster. He keeps this boozy, high-wire circus on the rails night after night.
Right. It's pure, unadulterated escapism for you as the viewer. But then, if you were watching the broadcast on Thursday, June 25th, you saw that entire glossy facade just completely shatter in real time.
It was so jarring.
It was the visual equivalent of a massive record scratch at a crowded nightclub. The upbeat music stops. The snark fades away. The studio lights suddenly feel a little too bright, a little too harsh.
And the ringmaster himself, a guy who literally makes his living deflecting drama with a smirk, just breaks down in tears.
That really violently rips you out of the escapism. You're so conditioned to seeing him in total control. So seeing raw, unfiltered grief pierce through that Bravo atmosphere forces you to confront reality.
And that reality is the loss of Kyra. To understand the depth of that loss, you really have to look past the on-camera talent entirely.
I always think of this as the Wizard of Oz dynamic. Like, we are all completely mesmerized by the giant floating head, the huge Bravo personalities, the fireworks, the noise.
Right, but Kyra's the one standing behind the curtain actually pulling the levers.
Yes, she was routing the power and making the illusion possible. And from what we found in the sources, she wasn't just pulling levers, she was commanding the entire room.
She really was. During Andy's tribute, he described her as having this sweet smile and gentle demeanor, but then he immediately countered that by calling her a small but mighty enforcer.
And I want to focus on that phrase, mighty enforcer, because Andy told this specific story that I cannot stop thinking about it. He described seeing her working at BravoCon.
Oh man, BravoCon is intense.
It's the Super Bowl of reality television, pure, unyielding pandemonium. Tens of thousands of screaming fans, dozens of reality stars with massive entourages. And Andy described looking out into this absolute maelstrom and seeing Kyra holding a bullhorn.
Just incredible.
Single-handedly corralling these massive, frenzied crowds and highly demanding celebrities.
Which tells you everything you need to know about her character, honestly. I mean, she's a Northwestern University graduate who spent 4 foundational years at Bravo, climbing from a production assistant up to a production manager.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because I find this completely fascinating. You have a young woman in her 20s walking into a room full of millionaires and massive egos, and she is the one telling them where to stand and when to stop talking.
Yeah, attempting to command a room like that usually gets you ignored or fired.
Exactly. It requires this bizarre mix of absolute logistical ruthlessness and high-level diplomacy.
It requires a psychological toolkit that very few people possess, regardless of their age. Late-night television production operates totally like a trench warfare family.
The hours are punishing.
Brutal. And the pressure to execute flawlessly is immense. As a production manager, your entire job is to anticipate disasters before they happen and fix millionaires' problems on the fly without ever letting the anxiety bleed onto the set.
You have to be totally unflappable.
Right. And when you go through that kind of daily high-stakes problem-solving together, the bond that forms is incredibly profound. Your survival partners?
Which you could clearly see in the immediate outpouring of grief from the Bravo universe. It wasn't just the camera operators mourning her. Social media was flooded with tributes from major reality stars.
Kyle Richards, Dolores Catania.
Candiace Dillard Bassett. These are people who interact with thousands of producers over their careers, but Kyra clearly left an indelible mark on them.
Because she was their steady hand. And that's what makes the suddenness of her loss so incredibly difficult to process. Her career was on this massive, accelerating upward trajectory.
And that's not even the wildest part. Wait till you hear what came next, because this is where the narrative shifts into something profoundly devastating.
Yeah, the timeline here is just heartbreaking.
In March of 2025, Kyra hits this massive professional milestone. She moves across the country, from New York to LA, to become a production coordinator on Jeopardy!
Which is such a massive shift in culture.
The exact opposite of Bravo. Bravo is manufactured chaos. Jeopardy! Is an institution defined by absolute rigid exactitude.
Right. They're compliance lawyers, buzzer timings, zero room for error.
Exactly. And according to the sources, transitioning to a legacy game show like that requires a totally different kind of precision. It was a massive validation of her talent.
But that triumph was just incredibly short-lived.
Yeah. Just a few months after arriving in LA in September of 2025, she's literally on the Jeopardy! Set working. Her coworkers noticed she was acting strangely, something was suddenly very wrong, and they rushed her to the hospital.
And that is where she received the diagnosis, glioblastoma multiforme, at just 27 years old.
I want to spend a second on the science here, because when we hear brain cancer, we know it's terrifying. But glioblastoma operates in its own unique category of devastation.
It really does. It's one of the most aggressive, fast-moving cancers that exists.
And what I understand, it's not like a localized tumor you can cleanly remove, right?
No, not at all. It doesn't form a neat, solid mass with clear borders. It spreads through the delicate tissue of the brain using these microscopic, thread-like tentacles.
So it's basically like trying to pull up a highly aggressive weed from your garden, but the roots of the weed have completely tangled themselves around the roots of your prized flowers.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it.
Oh, sure.
You literally cannot remove the weed without destroying the healthy, vital flowers around it.
Ooh, wow.
Because those tentacles infiltrate healthy brain tissue, a surgeon can never be 100% certain they've removed all the cancer without causing catastrophic brain damage. So it almost always comes back relentlessly fast.
It offers zero warning.
None. You could be living a vibrant life one day, and the next, you're facing a terminal reality.
I just keep thinking about the sheer, cruel juxtaposition of where she was standing when this happened. You're on the set of Jeopardy! You're surrounded by a game where every single question has a definitive answer.
Right.
And in the middle of that exactitude, you are ambushed by a condition that offers doctors almost no answers. It totally shatters the fundamental illusion of control we all operate under.
It really taps into our deepest vulnerabilities.
And if you're loving these Hollywood twists and industry deep dives, make sure you're subscribed, because we've got even crazier stories ahead.
Absolutely. So while her colleagues experienced the shock of her sudden exit, her family witnessed something far more grueling.
Right. We have to look at the personal perspective of her father, David Samson. David is a public figure himself. He's the former president of the Miami Marlins, a baseball analyst, and he hosts the podcast Nothing Personal.
His whole professional life is built around analyzing data and communicating clearly, which makes his documentation of his daughter's illness so striking.
He detailed the exact timeline. He called it a 9-month and 11-day battle.
The specificity of counting the literal days just shows the agonizing weight of every hour. And they threw everything at this: chemo, radiation, traveling to Germany for experimental treatments.
David even shaved his head in absolute solidarity. But the detail that completely stopped me in my tracks was how Kyra fundamentally refused to just become a patient.
She fiercely prioritized living.
Yes. Despite staring down a terminal diagnosis, she got engaged to her college sweetheart, William Trisdell, during this 9-month window. She prioritized making memories, and she even continued to push her dad to keep podcasting right up to the end.
It's a remarkable display of psychological defiance.
Yeah.
Usually the sheer gravity of a fast-moving grief like this just swallows everything else whole.
But David Samson's public statements following her passing on June 23rd offered this masterclass in holding two totally conflicting truths. He didn't sugarcoat it. He called it the cruelest disease.
But then he said something else, right?
Yes, and I have to stop right here and challenge this because it honestly made my chest tight. He said that despite the fact her life was stolen from her, he felt lucky for the 28 years they had. He explicitly refused to be cheated out of his gratitude.
Yeah, that's heavy.
And I reject that word. I cannot wrap my head around it. When you are standing at the end of a nightmare, burying your 28-year-old daughter, lucky, feels like the absolute last word that should ever enter your vocabulary.
I hear exactly why that feels jarring to you.
Is it just a massive psychological delusion, like a desperate defense mechanism to keep from drowning in the unfairness of it all?
I wouldn't call it a delusion. Yes, gratitude can absolutely function as a psychological life raft in the aftermath of unthinkable loss. But if we pull back and look at what Kyra accomplished, David isn't saying he's lucky she died.
Okay.
He's making a radical choice to recognize that her 28 years weren't just a prologue to a life cut short. They were a complete, phenomenal, intensely lived life all on their own.
She commanded rooms of executives. She found profound love.
Exactly. David is making an active, agonizing choice to let the light of those 28 years outshine the darkness of the 9 months and 11 days. It provides a framework to endure it without becoming completely hollowed out by bitterness.
And that endurance isn't just passive. They are actively weaponizing their grief. Later in the episode, we'll talk about the shocking twist in medical funding nobody saw coming. But first, let's look at what the family did next.
Right. They established the Kyra Fund in partnership with the Glioblastoma Research Organization to drive money directly into urgently needed immunotherapy research.
And I want to clarify what immunotherapy means because it gets thrown around in the news constantly. From my understanding, traditional chemotherapy is basically like carpet bombing a city to stop an invading army, right?
Yeah, it kills the bad cells, but causes massive toxic damage to the healthy cells, too.
But immunotherapy is totally different. It's more like training a highly specific assassin. You biologically program the patient's own immune system to specifically recognize and destroy only the cancer cells.
That is an excellent way to visualize it, and it's particularly crucial for glioblastoma because of those microscopic tentacles. You can't surgically cut them out, and the brain is highly sensitive to the toxic carpet bombing of chemo.
So training the immune system is one of the only viable paths forward, but that requires massive amounts of capital.
Which brings us to the staggering momentum behind the Kyra Fund.
Driven initially by David's network and then massively propelled by Andy Cohen's tearful on-air plea, the fund just exploded. They set a goal of $350,000 and rapidly approached $300,000 in a matter of days.
It's fascinating to look at the mechanics of modern philanthropy here, specifically the immense power of parasocial empathy.
Oh, for sure.
Audiences build these intense, one-sided relationships with television hosts. Andy Cohen is the reliable friend in your living room. So when he drops the host persona entirely and shows raw vulnerability, it activates that bond profoundly.
It's like an emotional Trojan horse.
Yeah.
We let late-night hosts in for entertainment so our defenses are down. When they break down, it hits us exactly like a close friend crying.
And it instantly transforms passive viewers into an active community driving real scientific funding.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and frankly where it makes me incredibly angry. Let's look at the reality here. Hollywood has these massive spotlights, usually pointed at completely manufactured drama. Andy points his spotlight at an ignored disease for 2 minutes, and boom, $300,000 is raised. But doesn't this highlight a glaring failure in our medical infrastructure?
It definitely feels that way.
I mean, why is critical terminal brain cancer research relying on a viral television breakdown to get funded? It feels dystopian that scientific progress depends on a grieving celebrity asking fans to chip in on what is essentially a GoFundMe.
It is incredibly easy to feel cynical about that.
Okay.
But if we examine the actual economics of medical research, it's a bit more nuanced.
How so?
Government grants and massive pharmaceutical funding naturally flow toward diseases affecting the largest populations, like breast cancer or heart disease. Orphan diseases, or highly aggressive but less common cancers like glioblastoma, always struggle for institutional funding.
Because the math doesn't work for the big pharmaceutical companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They rely heavily on private, targeted philanthropy to get the initial seed money to prove a concept before big institutional money steps in.
So while it feels deeply unfair that a viral moment is required, grassroots mobilization is historically how niche, high-risk breakthroughs happen.
Yes, it's a necessary friction. And David Samson explicitly stated his ultimate goal is for Kyra to be the catalyst that ends the devastation of this disease entirely.
He wants her legacy to be the reason no other family goes through this. And it's impossible to ignore the broader human context surrounding Andy Cohen in that moment.
The contrast there is pretty staggering.
Yeah, according to Variety, Andy has been quietly dating a businessman named Kevin Sobieski for the past year, talking publicly about finding the right person.
Right.
You have a man experiencing profound, life-altering personal joy who is simultaneously brought to his knees on live TV by devastating loss. It proves the human heart just has to find a way to hold immense joy and crushing grief in the exact same space.
It's the ultimate duality of the human experience. Life doesn't pause the tragedy just because you're experiencing joy, and vice versa. You have to carry both.
The emotional journey we've tracked today is immense. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, because we cover it all here.
We started with the jarring shock, piercing the Watch What Happens live set, explored the brutal reality of a glioblastoma diagnosis, and witnessed the awe-inspiring resilience of the Samson family.
Weaponizing their grief to forge a cure.
It's a narrative that demands you look at media differently moving forward. Behind every seamless edit and perfectly timed joke, there is a Kyra, a brilliant young professional orchestrating the magic in the dark.
The next time you watch your favorite show, remember the mighty enforcers making it possible. But before we leave you, I want to share one final detail from the source material that has been echoing in my head.
Oh, about her media diet.
Yes.
Yeah.
We mentioned she supported her dad's podcast right to the end, but the sources note that in her final days, the very last podcast Kyra chose to listen to was a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative audio report. Think about that. She didn't check out. She didn't seek mindless distraction. She stayed relentlessly curious and engaged with complex storytelling until her final moments.
That is just incredible.
So I want to ask you, the listener, if you knew your time was short, what kind of art or media would you choose to surround yourself with? What does your media diet right now say about what you truly value in life?
That is a phenomenal question to sit with. It strips away all the superficial noise and demands we look at how we spend our most finite resource, our attention.
It really does. So the next time you feel like the world is nothing but reality TV drama and manufactured outrage, listen closely. See if you can hear the record scratch. Because somewhere behind the curtain, real people are living, fighting, and loving with absolutely everything they have. You've been listening to Scope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood music and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.